lot of moms who listen to this podcast, so I feel like everyone's going to be so excited, and I bet most of them have heard of you because Big Little Feelings has become a big deal. You guys have over 3 million followers on Instagram and a #1 podcast on Apple Podcasts. Now, take me back, rewind. How and where did this all start?
Well, Kristen and I met in high school, so we've been friends a long, long time. And I mean, from the start, could not be more opposite from each other, where I was like the nerd in the front row who always had, their homework done. And Kristen was always in detention, like never going to class. But yeah, that's how it started.
So you started off as friends. Did you become parents around the same time? Like, how were you like, I'm going to take this to the internet? Because to me, like the shaming that happens on the internet with parenting is so terrifying. And I know a lot of people feel like everyone puts their best foot forward on Instagram. There's a lot of, shaming if you don't do this, and everyone wants to like not be shamed, of course, because that doesn't feel good. So you're putting out all this stuff on Instagram to be like, look how great we are. But you guys kind of keep it real. And how did you decide to do that?
So Big Little Feelings came after we were friends for so long. We were just like, you go do your thing, you go do your thing. I had my first baby and then the second baby. So 3 and 1, right when we started Big Little Feelings. And Dina is and was a renowned child therapist in LA. I could go on and on about how brilliant she is and like incredible in the therapy space. Didn't have kids yet. And so I found myself really texting her. We were both hyper obsessed with this way of parenting, her as a child therapist and me as a mom. And we both just kept saying like, there is nothing like this out there. There is nothing like this out there. And that meant both the advice, like that's practical and realistic. I just couldn't find it. But also on the other side, what you're saying, where it's like, mom pages made me feel like shit. Like I felt like the shittiest mom in the world. And I knew there was something missing out there for moms that had to be better and had to be more real and authentic and less shamey.
The proof is in the pudding, I always say, with over 3 million followers and celebrity moms that follow your accounts. Like it clearly was a space that needed to be there on the internet for people, which I love. And as a brand, like if somebody asked, how would you describe the Big Little Feelings brand? What would you say?
I feel like it's a community really for parents, for toddler parents, preschool parents, but really anyone, a place where you can come, you can celebrate wins, you can ask like really honest questions and get support and like a back rub after one of those really hard, long days.
Yeah, I love that. My sister follows you both, and I already know that as soon as I have kids, if that ever happens, like, bleh, like that's to me that it seems like a community. And I feel like moms and parents in general really need that sense of community. And that's where the internet can sometimes be such a beautiful place, is when you have that. And I know you're both mothers yourself, but how did you manage being parents and building a brand at the same time? Because I know that takes a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. A lot of work. I mean, Dina entered her motherhood journey when Big Little Feelings was born. Like she came out to Denver, Colorado, where I was. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, like we said. And literally we took this little trip for 2 days to dream up Big Little Feelings. And on that trip, she took a pregnancy test and was like, and she was pregnant. So she literally entered her motherhood journey.
Let's do this.
Yeah, starting this crazy business.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a big job to take on. And did you grow it like truly from the ground up, like not knowing, or did you have a strategy and plan? I just feel like a lot of things kind of can happen organically in a certain space, but sometimes it takes a lot of work. Was it kind of both for you? It just happened organically and you put in all the work?
We truly started from nothing. We sat and we dreamed up. We were like, okay, what do we need? Like, what do people need? Because this resource, this community, it was like so lacking, and we could see it so clearly. Like as a busy, tired parent, you just need the go-to of like, what do I do? What do I say when my kid is face down on the floor or they're refusing the potty? Like, what do you need? And that's kind of where we came from.
You also need like the brevity and the humor and a little bit of entertainment. And like, I'm bored. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm bored. I feel bad listening to somebody talk down to me, give me advice, right? So
100%.
We had the laser focus vision, but we did not have, like, we never had a celebrity boost in the beginning or a marketing strategy or a plan. The only plan was to just show up day in and day out as if we were already really successful, as if we already had 3 million followers watching us, as if we already were making the business of our dreams every single day, even though we had nothing. Like, that was our real only plan.
Exactly. And to truly be ourselves in a space where like not a lot of people were doing that, it makes you not feel great, honestly. But it was a grind. It was definitely amazing and also a ton of work.
When did it start? What year did you start this?
In 2020. Yeah, the little trip that we took was in January 2020. And then we just fully committed.
I need to know where you took the trip because I want to go there and brainstorm something big.
It really was this, like, really, it was not as glamorous as it sounds. Like a very, very cheap Airbnb in like a random suburb of Colorado where I could leave my kids but be close. And like, it was the least glamorous. We went to Trader Joe's. We were drinking like $2 chalk. Like, there was... It wasn't as glamorous, but in the moment it was beautiful though. You know, we were outside at a wine shop just dreaming it up.
I cooked us dinner every night.
Oh, you did? We watched Netflix.
Wow.
It was really romantic. It was great.
It really was.
That sounds inspiring, romantic, dreamy, and also shitty at the same time. I love it.
Yeah, in the best way.
Right up my alley.
Yeah.
In the best way ever. I love it. What are some reminders for moms or caregivers out there who are trying to build a brand but struggling with balancing it all?
Do you have advice for us? Does anybody have any advice for us on this?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like balance is an illusion. I wish we could all get it. I really do.
Yes.
And sometimes when people are like, you can have it all, have the right app, have the right schedule, it makes me feel worse. Like, it makes me feel like,
me too.
well, am I doing something wrong? I mean, the best piece of advice that I think I've ever gotten, and this could be just in motherhood or this could be in both, which is there are glass balls, there are plastic balls, and you can't juggle everything. So which balls are going to fall to the floor? And that's sometimes just a day-to-day process, my friend, where it's like, I'm out of hours. I got to go be with my kids now. Like, I'm done.
I agree. You have such limited time and energy. And honestly, I feel like it just changes with the season of life, I'm realizing. Like, even me as a mom right now, 3 years in versus year one, I'm like, it's totally different.
Yeah, me included. One of my best friends has a question for you both, but I'll get to some questions from listeners in a minute. I do still want to talk about a few more things, like people choosing right now to not have kids. Did either one of you have any hesitations, and why is there so much shame around that decision for women?
Oh, that's very interesting. I can only speak for myself. For a long time, I knew I did not want to have kids. Like, I was certain I did not want to have kids. And that was only because I came from not a great home. And I knew it was always my thing. I was a bad kid. I was going down a bad path. And I was like, I'm not going to up another I should not be doing this. And there was a certain point where something big happened in my life and there was a shift and we turned right. I mean, the judgment of having no kids, like it really made sense why before I was able to go to 10 years of therapy and heal and be ready to jump into parenting. I shouldn't have had kids at that time, right? There's no shame in being like, either I don't want them, I'm not ready for them, it's not for me. Like, it doesn't have to be for everybody.
It's true. And I feel like a lot of people, like, it's starting to be more of the conversation, and there is no one right way to live life. If that is your truth and that's what feels right for you, then that's great. Like, that's great. There should be no judgment.
Yeah, parenting is such a big job, I feel like it's such a big job. And I think our parents' generation, it was like, well, let's just do this. It was just part of it, right? And like the kids will come along. And now we're just like, wait, like, intentionally is this a good choice? And I love that.
Exactly. And the flip side, since I was 16 years old, I knew I wanted to be a mom. Like, I was looking forward to being a mom so badly. That is the thing that gave me life, like, even from a young age. And that's why I became a child therapist, by the way, is just that drive.
Dina is all of our moms, by the way. She will cook you dinner. She will take care of you. If you're a little sicky, she'll like rub you. Like, she's always been the mom of like the friend group, which is like, she's baking all the time.
You're in Colorado?
Yeah, I moved out to be by Kristen, a few years ago.
Dang. Okay, I want to come visit you because I love that vibe of like a nurturing, like, mom vibes. My mom had that, so I was really lucky. She was always like that nurturing mom and like a really incredible parent, which was really nice. But that was going to be my next point of being that fear around it up. And I remember somebody telling me, everyone's going to got their kids, it's just to what degree. And I was like, that doesn't help me at all. But what advice do you have for those people that are like, like you can't be a perfect parent? And is that something that you really showcase on your podcast and Instagram page?
Yeah, I think that's like a huge thing to touch on, by the way, because right now in this world with social media and just there is so much pressure to be the perfect parent. You're making perfect meals that are totally balanced. You're doing amazing activities and teaching your kids from a really young age everything. And I think that is a recipe for disaster and burnout and anxiety and depression. And really, we shouldn't be aiming for 100%. Like 80%, 70%, that is what we should be expecting from ourselves and not holding ourselves to like this crazy standard.
Well, and like it's also nuanced too, where it's like you aim for 60-70% of what works for you, by the way, like what Dean is saying, where it's like I have to have a perfect meal. And then also I saw something the other day was like you have to show your child that you dress up in the morning, or your child will never value themselves and their self-worth. And so there's so much noise. I don't cook food. I will never cook a morsel of food. And a lot of us might feel a lot of shame over that, or you're a shitty mom, or you're a bad mom. I let go of cleaning. I'm not the cleanest, but you know what I'm so good at? I'm great at like getting on the ground and playing with them. I'm great at like messy activities. I'm great at I'm great at so many things, and you can't be great at everything. And
No.
social media with that pressure makes you feel like you should be. And it's like, just release all the shit that doesn't work for you in parenting. You don't have to be like everybody else. And then once you realize that, also you're only going to hit like 60% anyways, and that's good enough.
Okay, they don't call me Kaitlyn the jet setter Bristowe for nothing. Nobody calls me that. But I travel a lot. And when I travel, I have a hard time sleeping because it throws my routine for a loop, especially with different time zones. Even if it's 1 hour, the time throws me off. But ever since I started using my Hatch Restore, I've been able to prioritize rest again. And I've really noticed a change in my energy level during the day. That's, I think, is the biggest thing I've noticed. Hatch Restore is a device that helps you build a consistent bedtime and morning routine so you can prioritize rest and sleep better. So Hatch teaches your body when it's time to sleep or wake up with light and sound cues. So set up your bedtime routine with meditations and sleep sounds, or let Hatch entertain you to sleep. They're constantly releasing new content on Hatch. Like in the morning, Hatch wakes you gently with a sunrise alarm. You can set it so the light comes on first, and then your personalized alarm sound comes on 15 to 30 minutes later. So even though I don't like birds, I like the sound of birds chirping in the morning. So I wake up to birds, and then she does this little meditation for me, and the light slowly rises. I actually think I've posted about this on Instagram, and everyone was like, what is that device? So great sleep can be learned with Hatch. 83% of customers report improved sleep, and they have 60-night money-back guarantee, so you can try it yourself risk-free. And right now, Hatch is offering my listeners $20 off your purchase of the Hatch Restore and free shipping at hatch.co/OTV. That's hatch.co/OTV to get $20 off and free shipping. Hatch.co/OTV.
And you're human. Like we all at some point run out of bandwidth of what we can deal with after a long day. There's a lot of crying and tantrums and pushback, and like you can only handle so much, and we're all going to kind of lose it sometimes. We're going to yell, we're going to say something we regret, and we just have to know that's part of the parenting game. And then when that happens, we just shift into repair. We get down with our kid, we apologize, we own it, and teach them how to repair and say sorry through it. And then just focus on, the next day.
I think that's a really important thing that you just said, is like, how do we repair? Because I mean, this happens in all relationships in our lives, whether it's at an office or with a parent or with a sister or a sibling or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or partner, whatever it is. It's the little rips along the way that don't get repaired where it blows up.
Yes.
And you can do that with children too, where how do you actually get down and get on their level and show that you yourself can apologize and that you are human and make mistakes? And do you believe in, I think I know the answer to this, but do you believe in the parents apologizing and saying when they're wrong to the kid?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a huge part of it. Like you said, you can think about it from the kid, but sometimes it's helpful when you think about it like yourself or like an adult. When someone apologizes, let's say my husband apologizes to me in a sincere way, by the way, it's not like well, you were just being really bad, so I yelled at you. When he is
Right.
like, listen, earlier, It wasn't you. You did nothing wrong. It was me. I was triggered. I'm so sorry. What that does for me as an adult is take the shame off of me. All the way leading up to that was like, God, did I do something? Did I do something wrong? Did I make him mad? Am I doing this? I'm racking in shame. And so you're rewriting that story for your kid when you do that. A kid, especially, they're making everything about themselves. That's where their brain is at. So they're going to bed that night and going like, God, I was bad. I really made mommy mad. I really did this. You're rewriting that story before they go to sleep to go, oh, okay, mommy's going to work on her big feelings. It's not about me. Start again tomorrow.
Exactly. When you get down and you just say, you're like, you know what? I got overwhelmed. I yelled. That's not your fault. That's me. I'm going to work on that. I'm sorry. That probably made you feel really scared and not great. I'm going to work on not yelling when I have a big feeling next time. How amazing. And you're showing your kid, by the way, how to be a human in the world, because they're going to make mistakes and they, deserve love, and we can be a loving family even when we all make mistakes and we're still growing.
That's such a good point. We all will. I mean, until the day you die, you'll make mistakes, and it's all about how you learn from them and talk through them. And how do you combine teaching them about being human and owning up to your own mistakes as an adult while holding space for discipline for the kids?
First, I was thinking too, I was like, sorry, I got lost because I was like, God, I'm still working too. It's so much easier for me to show up and say sorry to my kid and have compassion for them. And it's still so hard for me to do when I make mistakes. So that's definitely something I'm still working on.
You just had that epiphany right now on the podcast.
You're
like, whoa.
I did. I was like, oh,
sorry, I'm back in the
damn.
room now.
I was like, oh, wow. Okay, come back.
Okay, discipline. So I think that we're talking about two different things, because when we are disciplining, the true meaning of the word discipline is to teach. When a teacher is at school, we would be horrified if a teacher at school was like, how dare you get this wrong? Get in your room, right? And so we're thinking of two different things where, as we approach discipline, we're ideally disciplining in a calm, confident way. They're not ruffling us and we're unfazed, and we're just like, hey, it's not okay to hit. I'm putting the truck up here. We're giving a consequence and separating the two, because then on the other side, when we mess up, and I literally just did this morning, even if they did something wrong, it's more important that it's my job to be able to stay calm in that moment. That trumps everything. So even if they did something wrong, we're going to go ahead and let the repair part of it trump everything, because no matter how bad you are, no matter what you did, I shouldn't have yelled at you. Point blank.
100%. And when it comes to little kids and their brain development, by the way, when we come in hot, when we come in intense, it shifts the way that their brain is working, where they actually can't even learn. So they can't learn how to do better when the emotions are really heightened.
Yeah, isn't that the truth in adult relationships too, where if someone's yelling at you, you kind of want to go offline and not even listen to what they're saying, where if they are present and really speaking from their heart and what's hurting their feelings about the situation, you listen more, you understand more. And it's just so interesting that, it's still, that applies to kids as well. And obviously want to make the most out of this podcast for the moms and caregivers who are listening. So you are experts, I'm saying it. What would you say are the most common challenges that you get asked about on whether it's the podcast or online?
I would say the number one question that we get is a heartbreaking one, which is, am I screwing my kid up? Am I messing them up? Is the number one kind of fear that we hear, because we all love our kids so much and want to raise these great humans.
And it's a variety of topics is how it will come in. It will be a question about screen time, right? And it's up, screen time. And then at the end, it's not always, but most of the time it's this common theme of did I mess them up? Was it too much? Did I do it the wrong way? Right?
Melt their brain.
Hit it. Any topic,
right.
Underlying thing is always and did I ruin them? Was that the wrong thing to do? That's the most common, probably.
And what is your response to that?
No, you're not ruining them at all. This is, parenting comes in so many flavors and varieties, and what's best for your family. And we are all growing through what we grew up in. The way we grew up really impacts how we show up as a parent or what triggers us. we're all doing our best and growing through it.
And for the record, if you're following an Instagram page that's devoted to parenting, and then you love your kids so much that you're sliding into the DMs, and you're probably a great parent, right? Like, you care a lot.
Yeah.
You're doing great. Like, I'm
That's a good
sure
point.
you specifically, if you're you're doing awesome.
100%.
That's a really nice point. I like that. I don't know if there is an answer for this, but how much time is the right amount of time for screen time with kids these days?
Yeah, I mean, there's like guidelines from research, and it depends on the age. Honestly, you can look it up, and the World Health Organization has some guidelines. But honestly, then there's real life, and sometimes we're going to go through chapters with screen time where it becomes this amazing tool. Like, for example, when I had my second baby, I was in a space where I had to put on some screen time because the other option was I was going to totally lose it and yell at my toddler. And to me, that was worse. So I was like, you know what? We're going to lean on that screen time for a little bit, and then we'll get back into rhythm in a little while and it'll be okay.
I like that. That's fair advice as well. And I mean, there's a lot of first-time parents out there that are also probably listening. Actually, my assistant who's here right now is literally on standby for her sister to go into labor at any moment.
Oh my gosh.
And I think, it's so exciting. And I think a lot of people just feel this overwhelming responsibility, obviously, that like you live so selfishly your whole life, and then all of a sudden you're home from the hospital with a life and this responsibility that you are just, it's terrifying. And somehow you like, it's like you don't trust your own instincts when you know that this is your child and you created this and what you do is going to be your best. But what advice do you have for first time parents?
I think it's exactly that, but you probably have to figure it out in your own time. I think the number one advice I got was like, listen to your instincts, listen to your instincts. And I'm like, what instinct? I'm just worried. Like, I'm worried all the time. I don't know what you mean, And so I think it's always a learning curve, and you may not even be able to find those instincts. Hopefully you do. And once you do, hold on tight to those. Like, nothing anyone else says is going to matter. And I think if I could look back, the one thing I would say to myself is you yourself, not just your kid, you're going to evolve so many times over this motherhood journey, where today you feel like co-sleeping is the best thing for you. But then in 6 months, you start a new job where you're just kind of touched out and you realize, you know what, actually, I would like to start putting you in your bed. And when I say co-sleeping, I mean like older kids, just to be clear, or breastfeeding or formula. Like you are going to evolve so many times, and there's so much pressure to be like, I'm this kind of a mom, where it's like, just figure out what works for today, and like this might change tomorrow. Take the pressure off. It doesn't have to be forever.
I totally agree. In the newborn stage and like becoming a first time parent especially, there's just so many intense conflicting ways to do it, and shaming, like you kind of brought up at the beginning. And really there's no one right way to do it. You have to find what works for you.
Right. It's kind of like that mentality of if you're going through a hard time in life, let's say, you kind of sometimes have to take it day by day. If you're in a really rock bottom place, it's hour by hour, sometimes minute by minute. And that's kind of a mom mentality that you can take as well. Like, as long as you are doing your best trying to keep your child alive and give them the best care and love, and like that, there's really no right or wrong. The only wrong would to be if you're not trying to keep them alive, but which obviously nobody's doing that. So it's almost that mentality of hour by hour with how you parent and what your style is, or that, I guess that's what I'm getting from this.
But when I think back to becoming a mom for the first time, if I could have kind of a redo on something, I think I would have more consciously strategized with my husband, because that's what really threw me. We just kind of didn't know how to parent together. Like we thought we were so connected and so prepared, and we can handle any tough times that come our way, but we really didn't have these deep conversations of how to support each other or how to divide up duties. Like, who's going to be taking care of the baby? How are we going to go back to work at the same time? What's it going to look like? And then we really got into this like tough space of our marriage where, it was hard.
I can't even imagine how hard that part would be. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's interesting to think about it as it has to be a strategy and you have to talk about it. And it almost has to be like a become a job between the two of you that you want to, like, let's say your empire and you're two business people, you want to work towards the same thing. It's kind of thinking of that with your child. And I just think, like you said, you could have the strongest foundation in the world and then you have a child and you realize how your parenting styles may not mesh, and that creates a lot of resentment and build up too because you
Exactly.
don't have time to go back and like focus on your relationship because you're like, I'm tired, what would help is sleep right now, and then you get up and do the, you know, parenting thing again. So how, I know you kind of said it, but how do you mesh parenting styles with another person? What do you think the best strategy is to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. You have two people often coming in with totally different childhood experiences that they're bringing to the table.
Right.
Sometimes they mesh and sometimes not. And I feel like having the conversations is so helpful. Therapy, bless therapy. Kristen and I stand by that. It has changed our lives. That's what's transformed my marriage. Like the struggles we're talking about, we're finally starting to make a little progress thanks to therapy, honestly, and learning how to communicate.
I would also say it's not just about different parenting styles because that also
Mhm.
comes in a little bit later, like when they're little babies in the first year. We're not really, we're not disciplining, we're not saying you should still have those conversations, but I think you're so immediately rocked by what you were alluding to, which is this job, this empire. And when you can strategize in advance of like, what are your strengths? What are my strengths? So that in advance your partner knows, you know what, I'm strong at cooking or ordering takeout or getting you water because I'm not going to feed the baby because you are trying to breastfeed. All the logistics of every, you know what I am good at? I'm good at running to Target to get diapers. So that's a me thing. Literally strategizing in advance, because oftentimes what happens is in the early stages the mother is physically doing the most because they have to be up every 2 nights if you're
They have to.
breastfeeding. A lot of it falls, and so it's this unspoken, it just keeps going where it's like
The
suddenly she's
resentment
doing
can build
everything,
so
even
fast.
beyond when like, okay, now we're like, he's 6 months, like you can do this now, right? Like you can take a bottle, but we've gotten into this pattern where we haven't divided up these duties. And it's so helpful to in advance literally look at it as a job. What are you good
You're
at?
right,
What am I
because
good at? Divide up.
your whole life just shifts. Like your
Yeah.
whole day to day when that baby comes looks nothing like it did before that chapter. Yeah, and the resentment and the tension can build fast.
The resentment and all of that, and on top of sleep
Oh
deprivation,
yeah.
which will destroy
Totally.
anyone.
Yeah.
So it's just like such a complicated perfect storm for anger and frustration. And I mean, like you were saying earlier, it's kind of when the kid gets older too, how do you determine with discipline who gets to be the, you know how they say the good cop and the bad cop, and it's always usually lies on the mom for being the bad cop, and how do you decide those roles in a relationship?
I mean, I feel like this is like, I don't know if I don't know if this is the right answer, but we, like in my marriage, we really do treat this almost like a job, but like a fun job and the best job in the world, by the way. We're like,
Yeah.
we have meetings, like we have quarterly big meetings and then we have weekly regular meetings. Cause it's like, if something starts to shift a little bit, like we're going to jump on this, we're going to tackle this. And I mean, at least that's my answer is like, like it's going to evolve where you start to notice the parenting thing and being like, whoa, 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 whoa. It seems like we're on you got to like jump on that.
Yeah, I can only speak from my personal experience too. At the beginning, it was actually so much harder because we were kind of bumping heads. My husband wasn't, he'll say this, totally interested in learning a new way. And it wasn't until later that we started to, I mean, again, he went to therapy, so he was able to kind of sit with emotions and acknowledge them as important more easily. And then, kind of like Kristen's saying, we started to have our own version where at the end of the day, we learned how to communicate and be like, hey, let's touch on that moment earlier without him going into a totally defensive place. Because that's really what was happening, was a shutdown. Like anything I said to him felt like, okay, fine, I'm a terrible parent. I can't do this. I'm the worst, and it's not that. And we had to kind of get past that so that we could touch on these moments and just use them for growing. So we're making some progress.
Do you think that is the most common parenting tiff, is between the two, where it's, the mom feels like I have to do all this so the dad doesn't feel like they're doing enough. And I don't mean to just label it mom, dad, but caregiver, parents. It usually feels like they're very common tiffs that couples have in this time.
I think statistically the mental load, especially, maybe not the physical load too, because again, when we categorize husbands, they do, I think, tend to feel like, wait, I do things, like I take care of the bills, I take care of this, I take care of that. So I think it's more the mental load is definitely something that I think is such a struggle when it comes to motherhood and separation. I don't know what the statistic was, Dina. It's something like 75 or 80%. And there are even all these, the statistic was crazy about even working parents, where it's like you have two equal working parents, and yet 80% of the time, almost all of the load is still on the mom. So I think the whole mental load part is the part that most struggle with.
Okay, 'tis that time of year. It's cold outside, and I dream about being in Hawaii, sipping on a pina colada, listening to the ocean waves hit the rocks, seeing whales. Ugh, anyone else ready to get away this season? With the drying weather and heat styling for events causing damage to my hair care routine in the winter is so important to me, and Ouai's hair oil and detox shampoo are my number one go-tos. And you can fill your little sleigh with gifts from Ouai. Ouai's products are the best gifts for effortless routines, perfect for you and everyone on your list of the season. Now, for those on the naughty list, get it, like naughty hair? Ouai's leave-in conditioner is the perfect gift for the naughty ones. It helps with frizz, tangles, flyaways, and breakage for all hair types. It's color-safe, cruelty-free, and protects hair from heat up to 450 degrees. So important. And pair that with their hardworking detox shampoo. Chef Kiss, my favorite. It cleanses product buildup, hard water deposits, dirt, oil, all other impurities that gets in your hair every single day and your scalp. Or maybe you want a fast fix for healthy hair. The hair oil will rejuvenate your hair so it's healthier, more vibrant, and it smells incredible. So don't miss your chance to get Ouai this holiday season. Go to the Ouai, that's TheOuai.com for 15% off site-wide when you enter promo code VINE. That's TheOuai.com for 15% off with code VINE. Off the Vine is brought to you by Progressive Insurance, and most of you listening are probably multitasking right now. While you're listening to me talk, you might also be driving or cleaning, walking, exercising, maybe grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now, and that is getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. We all know that it's super easy to do. You can save money by doing it right from your own phone, and drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. So discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now and quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 28 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, national average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
Switching gears a little bit, because we have holidays coming up, and having, I feel like, toddlers or kids is supposed to be exciting around the holidays, but I think it would be really stressful. I feel like kids and toddlers are such wild cards, but what do you have for advice for toddler parents going into the holidays?
I mean, there's a few we could touch on. Like, you talk toddlers, I think brain development, and that means like fun, exciting things. There's parties, there's events, we're out of routine. Like, that is a perfect setup for meltdowns and tantrums. So just to expect it going into holiday season, that things that seem really fun and exciting can also be overwhelming, overstimulating, and we can just kind of expect the meltdowns. It's not personal.
Yeah, and also it doesn't mean they're not grateful. I feel like that was the hardest switch for me personally, even, because you're like, I did this all for you. Like, this is Disney on Ice. What is happening? It's like Dina's saying, it's brain development. We can just expect it. We can ride the wave. It will come back to normal when we're back into routine.
I feel like the other thing too is our mental load, our list of to-dos becomes like infinitely stacked, especially as moms, as a primary caregiver in your house. And so with that part, it's kind of like we talked about before, like let some things go. It's okay. It does not have to be perfect. You do not have to do every single activity. Your kids really love the small little moments. Like that's what they crave. They hang on to. It's reading a book with you by the fire. It's watching, the special holiday movie. It doesn't have to be super fancy to be really meaningful for little kids.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. I think kids probably have a hard time showing their appreciation. I don't think kids even understand how much parents do because how would they know? They've never been in that position. And, there's that saying, once you have a kid, then you say like you're sorry to your parents and you have this way bigger understanding for everything that they did for you. So I know like even from listening to either my sister or friends being like, it feels like kind of what you said, it feels like I'm doing so much for them and there's no gratitude back. How do you accept that?
I'm trying to think because I maybe I just understand it because I'm a therapist. I've never expected my kid at this age, at a young age, to be able to come up to me and be like, thank you. You do so much for me. That's my husband. That's my tiff with my husband instead.
That's right. Their brains are developed enough to be able to do it.
Yeah. You're like, sir, you get it.
No, I think both empathy and gratitude, these are skills that are going to come later in life. Even sharing, we expect so much at such an early age that truly these concepts are not to be expected at 2 or 3 or 4 or even 5 years old. The best thing that you can do to teach this is to model it. So yeah, your husband needs to come home and be like, hey babe, thank you so much for making these memories. Thank you for making this whatever. Your toddler comes over and hands you a piece of cheese. You go, oh my God, thank you for this cheese. And that's the best way that they can learn gratitude, empathy is through you.
100%. I mean,
that
empathy
is so true.
Yeah, empathy is just really noticing what someone else is feeling and showing that you care. Like it's really that simple. And so when your toddler, your kid is having a tough time and you show up and you say, hey, I can see you're feeling upset. I'm here for you. Do you need a hug? I'm here. How can I help you? Like that goes such a long way.
I think it's good to have such simple thoughts for that too, like showing through example and modeling the gratitude, compassion, I'm so big on gratitude in like mornings and nights and like sharing that experience with kids to be thankful for what you have and by being polite and having manners even to your children and I love leading by example. I think that's such an important thing in life and so that makes sense that you would incorporate that into parenting. So I'm going to get to some questions from listeners. I'm going to start with one of my friends who has just about to turn 2 and he is the sweetest, most loving angel, but he started going to like a daycare almost school and he is really pushing other kids all the time. He's shoving other kids and she's so sad because the teacher will be like, hey, he was pushing again today. But when he's home, he's so sweet. He doesn't have other kids, to deal with. So she just wanted to know if there's advice for how she can, work with him on stopping the pushing and if she's doing something wrong, which I know she's not.
I can kick us off, but again, brain development, super important. They haven't developed the upper area of their brain, their prefrontal cortex, that helps them manage their emotions, control bodily impulses, by the way, and express their feelings or needs in words. That has not yet developed, which is why we see a lot of pushing or a lot of hitting. It's a way to get those needs expressed when a kid is trying to take something from you or, is too close to you. This is their way of expressing, and it's totally age appropriate to start.
Yeah, and it's really through repetition at this age where once you understand that, right, our whole goal in these early years are to identify what that feeling is, right? Like if you're teaching feelings at home, are you feeling mad? You're feeling mad. Are you feeling mad? You're feeling frustrated, right? And then it's not okay to shove. It's not okay to hurt someone. What are some things you can do when you feel mad? Oh, do you want to tell Tommy? No, stop. I don't like that. Or teaching them. I think our society has taught kids for so long, you just give up your toy, like share, give it up. And that can lead to more anger and just, it's not the best solution. So you can work at home where it's like, hey, if you're feeling mad and you're not done with a toy, say, no, I'm not done yet. And you can break that down into a 2-year-old language, of course. But when you can focus to teach him, I'm feeling mad, and he can identify that himself. And then B, what do I do when I feel mad? That's where it happens.
And as the parent, when you're trying to do this stuff, your guiding light is all feelings are okay. some behaviors are not. So the feeling is okay. We want them to be able to name it. We want them to be able to sit with a big feeling and be okay with it. Because when you try to push it down and you're like, anger is bad, you never learn how to deal with it. Anger is a natural feeling, and we want to learn how to let it out safely. And that's what we do at home. We just practice. When you're feeling mad, what can you do? Let it out in a safe way.
Wow. The combination between the two of you is so perfect. I get why you have millions of followers. It's so real and so honest, and also just like brilliant, and I love it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have you in my moving to Colorado when
You
I
were
have
invited.
kids. What about potty training? Do you have any advice for potty training?
A lot.
Oh yeah. We've got a whole
course for it. Yeah, it's a big thing.
Lot of advice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, where can people find that course?
You can find it on our website at biglittlefeelings.com, and it is a game changer. It just walks you through the before, the during, the after, like get a step-by-step of how to do this thing.
Because there's a lot of potty training advice out there. I think that's why it's so hard to answer this question. Like, potty training, what do you feel about it? There's so many different methods.
Right.
And what's nice is that this one course, it potty trained 150,000 kids in 1 year. Okay. Like it works. Like, we agonize. There's research. There's, did you know when you potty train, that comes with a lot of tantrums and pushback, and suddenly your little angel is very different. Like, we thought of everything, put it in there in a really simple, easy way. It's all there for you.
Tell the website one more time.
biglittlefeelings.com.
And I'm sure you have so much information on there as well. I might even ask more questions that you're like, check out the website. I think you said something about a tantrum, and that's obviously bound to happen. The kids don't understand where they're doing it. They just have big feelings and they need them to get out. So how do you handle a public tantrum?
Ooh, yeah. The public ones. That extra tinge of sweat.
Yeah, that's triggering even for me, where like at home, I'm like, I'm cool, I'm even, I've done the work, I'm got it. And even for me, the in public tantrum is triggering. Dina, take it away. What should I be doing?
When it comes to tantrums, we want to do our best to come into the situation calm and confident, right? We can handle big feelings. Feelings are part of life. It's not going to shake us. We are so confident, and we can acknowledge our kids' feelings. Like, that's how we kick it off. We're going to okay those feelings and let them know, I see you. I see you're feeling sad. I see you're feeling really frustrated right now, and it is okay to feel that way. And if needed, we're going to hold the boundary next and be like, you know what? It's okay to feel mad, and it's not okay to hit. So I'm going to help you stay safe. Right? Safety is always number one. And then later, after the tantrum is done, because that again is when their brain can take in new information and can really learn how to handle those big feelings, that's when we're going to teach them, okay, next time your sister hits you, instead of shoving her to the floor, what can we do? What can we do together? Yes, you can come over. You can say, I didn't like that, or please don't touch me, or you can move away. We want to be able to practice.
With the ones in public, I think what's hard is that, we can't be standing in a Target or in the middle of whatever, maybe there's a dance recital or a performance, and scream and scream and scream. And that's the hard part, because we're like, okay, all feelings are okay, but also like, I'm standing here and we can't just let this happen for 45 minutes. I think it's all about the approach, right? Where it's like, I'm here for you, and I'm going to swoop you up. We're going to go to a safe, quiet spot where you can let your feelings out. If you need to take them out of a Target, if you need to take them out of a party, it's a different approach than going, if you don't stop crying right now, we're leaving. We don't want to do that, right? It's the same thing, but different, where it's like, I'm going to take you over here safely, because by the way, kids get overstimulated. Kids who are in public are through the roof. And it actually might feel really nice to them to be like, hey, do we need a quiet moment over here? This is where you can let your feelings out. Let it out, girl. We're outside of Target. Do it, and then we'll go back in when we're all feeling better and we're regulated.
Kristen, thank you. I forgot about the public.
That's great. I mean, you need both.
Like,
you need
a tantrum hole.
You need to know what to do in the tantrum and then also in public. So it was great.
Exactly.
That's why there's two of you. That's why I'm telling you, you're a great team over here. This is working. I feel like my listeners had so many questions, but I really do think that you probably answer so many of them on your podcast, on your website, on your Instagram. So again, we'll send everybody in those directions so that they can know exactly where to find you. And then last but not least, I always get my guests to confess something embarrassing to me, and we're going to end it on a high note, or maybe
Love
a low
it.
note.
Kristen, kick it off.
Me?
Girl.
Oh, mine's not as good as yours. Maybe that's better, I think, actually. Maybe it's better.
Well, yeah, we'll end it on a really low note.
I really had to think about this, by the way, because I think it's like since becoming a mom, it's so humbling. You know, like after you have like done IVF and there's like an embryo being inserted in you while there's you know, you're just like there's not a lot of shame or embarrassment involved. So I really had to think back to a time I felt embarrassed, and I had it. It's not even that embarrassing. But I am a really big people pleaser, but also an introvert. And so my nightmare is being stuck in an Uber and the person is talking a lot, or anything, a hairdresser. I'm sweating just thinking about it. And so for some reason, to like shut down the conversation or make it shorter, I will just spit out one word answers. And for some reason, they're not always true, where they're like, oh, where are you going today? And I'm like, work. And I'm not going to work, right? I'm like going home, but it's just shorter. I don't want to tell you where I'm going throughout the day. And so then the next, they're like, how many, like, do you have any kids? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, how many kids do you have? And I'm like, one, you know, but I have 3 kids. And they're like, oh, is it a boy? And I'm like, yep, it's a boy. And so I have this whole like crazy story. And that happens all the time, by the way. But this time they got out and I had a friend that was waiting for me. And they were like, tell your son that I say hi. And I didn't have a boy at the time yet. And I was so embarrassed because my friend was like, what are they talking about? Like, and I had to tell the whole story of how I fabricate these other lies just to like get out of the conversation. I was super embarrassed.
Oh my God. That is so,
yeah.
That's very funny because I do that on airplanes.
Yes.
It's like my biggest fear for somebody to just sit and do small talk with me on an airplane. And so I do the same thing where, like, if they're like, oh, the worst is when you sit down and they go, you going home or coming home or whatever that is. I'm like, oh God, here we go. And then, so this person sat next to me and they did the whole thing. And, and then they go, oh, so what do you do for work? And I didn't want to be like, well, I was on reality TV and then I got a podcast out of it. And then, like, I didn't want to do that whole thing. And so I was like, oh, I just do some social media. Oh, what kind of, and I'm lying out of my freaking teeth because I'm just like trying to end the conversation. And then a girl comes up and she recognizes me and she goes, oh my God, you won Dancing with the Stars. I'm such a big fan. And
they're blowing your cover.
No! And it was at the beginning.
Oh my God. The part of the story.
It was at the beginning of the flight.
I forgot to mention was part of this story is that I was also an accountant. Like I was an accountant. I was going to like a work conference, like you're saying, where people are like, what do you do for work? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of an influencer, but I'm not really, because like that's real, you know, and it's just like, I don't want to do this. Like I'm an accountant, and it just got so bad. It just kept going.
Let's just not.
It just got so like, because it's like, well,
my
where are you
God.
going? What are you doing for work then? Or do you live here? You know, and you just sputter. You're just like, yes, no.
And then we're the rude ones because we don't want to talk. But I'm like, mind your business, lady.
Yeah.
Kristen, I love how you're
Dina,
like,
you're up.
You're like, I have, you know, like what shame is left? Girl, I have so much shame. Where do I even start? Like, do I pick the time that I fell down the stairs when my crush said hi to me in high school? Do I pick the time that like, oh my God, there are so many that I could. Freezing when I was public speaking in 4th grade and running down the aisles. Like, where do I start? I think I'm going to actually go
all of these.
to one where, Kristen, you were at this one. So it was during my second birth. I had a home birth. We're at home. We're in my bedroom and I'm literally on the floor. Like at the very end, this baby is coming out and I'm pushing and I'm like, oh shit, literally I'm gonna poop right now. Like there is no way I can push this baby out right now without shitting in front of my husband, my mother, and my best friend. And I panic because this is like my nightmare, by the way. This is like growing up, potty training, like different trauma, so much shame around poop. Okay. Totally. And so I just yell at everyone. I'm like, get out, go in the bathroom. And they all have to run into the bathroom. I'm like, get in there,
get out. We're like, okay, all right. Yep, no problem. But we didn't know why. We had no idea why, by the way. No idea.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they had no idea
to get out. Yeah.
So I push. His head is now coming out and I'm like, great, my husband's not going to see the baby be born. Like, get back in here. This is crazy. It's wild.
Wait, that is chaotic in like the
Yeah.
best way, because it's so funny how different everybody is. I just feel like I have
No
no shame, and I have no shame around poop, where I'm just like, if it happens, it happens. Like they're gonna clean it up real fast anyways. It's fine. I'm like, it's the miracle of birth.
We all do
Oh my
it. And
gosh.
so
in the end, I
jealous.
don't even
I
think
wish
she
I didn't
did.
have
I don't
this.
even think she did, but every one of mine I did. And I was did
you have poop?
100%
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah. I was prepped ahead of time.
100%.
I think my first birth, like, it was like 50, it was just never ending, you know? And I'm just like, whatever, dude. Like, not my job. You know what I mean? It's not my job. I'm too late here. Whatever. Like, I don't care at all. No shame.
No, I mean, you get there's
Nope.
no. It's
Yeah.
we all poop.
Yeah,
we
I don't
all
care.
poop. Thank you for sharing both of those stories with me. That is incredible, and I feel like a lot of women probably can relate and have done the same
sure.
thing in both situations. So it's a safe place. It's a safe place.
Thank you.
I could do a whole other podcast on home birth. I'm so
yeah.
fascinated by them. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I loved this conversation. Even as someone who I'm like a godmother and an aunt and all the things, and it was so fascinating to talk to both of you. So thank you, and thanks for doing what you do. I'm Kaitlyn Bristowe. I'll see you next Tuesday. See you next.